Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited for this guest to come on. Those who know me know that I had hypnotherapy and it was just incredible. And the person I had it with is a man called David Samson, and he is coming on tonight. And brace yourselves, and I don't say that lightly, he is amazing. The work I did with him literally saved me. It's going to be so interesting tonight to hear, obviously, a professional's view, to get some insight into what hypnotherapy is. He's here. Let's get him on. Just waiting. Hi!
Hi Zoe, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good.
Well, I'm not sure if you just heard my introduction about you.
No.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm
No.
gonna have to say it again. I said
Don't embarrass me, please.
those that know me know I had hypnotherapy, and even on these lives, I always mention you because you're a big part of my journey.
Oh, thank you, Zoe. Thank you.
That's all right. And so I'm very excited to have you on here and talk to you. And I think it'll be really interesting to get a professional's viewpoint on things that we've discussed before. And those of you, by the way, that are watching, David's going to come on every Sunday, which is very exciting. And I just can't wait for everyone to see how great you are. Really.
You can't?
I can't wait for everyone to see how great you are.
Well, no, please. Okay, you're making my head big. That's not me, you know that.
Okay, so should we start by asking you to tell us a bit about you? Who are you?
Okay, well, my name's David Samson, and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I've been practicing for 18 years now. And I'm a senior member of the General Hypnotherapy Register, which is some fancy organization that keeps an army, basically make sure I'm not a bad boy. Okay, so out of those last 18 years, the last 5, I've specialized in online hypnotherapy, which is the new big thing. But I've been doing it for about 5 years now.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yes. So I now have clients all over the world, thanks to Zoom.
Wow, that's so cool. So how did you get into it, hypnotherapy?
How did I get into it? Well, I've always had an interest in psychology. And way back in the late 70s, I decided I wanted to study the psychology of gambling. So I thought it would be a great idea, much against my father's wishes, to train as a croupier, so I could actually learn about gambling from the inside. But the problem was that I got promoted, and I ended up ultimately as the boss of the casino. But I stayed there until 1999, and then I trained to do what I do now. So I had a very interesting insight into people's brains by talking to very, very wealthy people to find out what it was that made them gamble. So that was my introduction to psychology.
So you've always been interested in psychology?
Always.
Wow.
I can remember my parents used to have a pub, and I can remember being 4 years old, and my father would sit me on the counter, on the bar, and as people came through the door, he asked me to think, what is that person like? I had to assess them. So I had an early start in psychology.
Wow. Talk about early experiences.
Mm.
Wow, amazing. So I guess firstly, I want to ask you, this is an interesting one. Have you ever had hypnosis or hypnotherapy? Is that part of the training?
Yes, I have. As part of my training, what we have to do is we have to be hypnotized ourselves. Because obviously, if you haven't experienced it yourself, you can't do it on anyone else. So that is actually part of the training.
Wow, that's mad. Okay, so tell us a bit, what is hypnotherapy? What is actually happening?
Okay, what happened? Shall I explain to you the difference between the conscious brain and the subconscious brain? Would that be a good place to start?
That would be great.
Okay, so from before we're born, when we are inside our mother's wombs, about 12 weeks after conception, This is where memory begins. It's a very crude form of memory, but a little child, unborn, the size of a lime, inside the room, begins to sense things. Obviously, they haven't got a clue what's going on. You haven't been born yet, so you can't see, but you begin to sense things. So memory begins here in a very crude form, and then you get born there, and then you live your whole life until you die there. Now, during this time, everything us human beings ever see, feel, hear, or smell is permanently recorded somewhere in the human brain. Now, this is not a football. This is the human brain. It's divided into two sections. The conscious, that's the bit that you and I are using now. This is the logical, analytical, intelligent bit. But it only takes up about 10% of the brain's capacity. It's the very easily accessible part of the brain. This bit here is called the subconscious. This is the bit behind the locked door, the bit that we can't access under normal conscious awareness. But it now gets worse. For the first 6 years of our lives, nearly everything that we see, feel, hear, and smell, that gets dumped in there. Now, during that time, something called learned behavior takes place. When we're born, we're pretty much perfect. Then mums and dads come along, and I'm a dad, so I can say what I'm about to say, come along and screw the kids up. I'll give you an example. Imagine you are 1 year old sitting in your high chair and a spider runs across your table. If you have never seen a spider in your life, what do you think your reaction would be?
Nothing.
Correct. Your eyes see the spider, a signal gets sent from your eyes to your conscious brain saying, wow, what the hell is that? Am I in danger? So this does a Google search, and of course it comes back with a 0 result. It then zaps a signal over to your subconscious. This is your protection mechanism. This is the part of the brain that keeps you safe and thinks it keeps you safe. The two are actually opposite. So it zaps a signal over to there. Am I safe? Am I safe? And this bit says, I don't know, go for it. So you go to grab the spiders. You go to grab the spider. Your mum walks into the kitchen. What does mum do?
Scream.
Good old Louise. Ah! Yeah. At which point, a folder is created in your subconscious called danger. Mum screamed, okay? Made a loud crash, never ever go near one of those again. So the folder is created, the folder then goes to sleep. It stays asleep until the subconscious thinks that you're in danger. So, and I emphasize the word thinks. So 5 years later, you're around at a friend's house, you're sitting on the carpet playing with some toys, another spider runs across the floor. At that particular moment, your conscious brain says, aha, that's called a spider. I've seen them on the television. I know I'm safe. But what does this bit say?
Danger.
Correct. And this bit says, please don't let me scream. All my friends are looking at me. Don't let me scream. And what does this bit say?
Scream.
Scream. So you run out the room screaming. You run out the room screaming. This bit saying, why am I doing this? They're all laughing at me. What does this bit say when you run?
You're doing the right thing.
Keep running.
Yeah.
So I know this is a simple model, but this is how I've been fixing people for 18 years. I'm not interested in conscious stuff, okay? Because whatever is going on, when people come to see me, whatever is going on in their mind, it is not in the conscious brain.
Yeah.
Because if it was, then they wouldn't come to see me.
I feel like it's also like, well, with a lot of phobias, rationally, you know, like as you're saying, like rationally, you know, like I'm bigger than a spider, it's not going to hurt me.
But that's what this bit's saying. This bit's saying, pull yourself together, girl, okay?
Sure.
There's nothing, it's only a spider. But that's not what this bit's saying.
Yeah.
This bit has got a completely different agenda based upon a perception of something that happened a long time ago. So this is the fundamental working of the brain. And as we go through tonight and through all of our sessions over the next few Sundays, everything that we'll be talking about is going to be based upon this principle. So conscious, easily accessible, but only 10%. Subconscious, 90% behind the locked door.
That's crazy. So do you think, so for instance, Sammy doesn't like spiders, like at all. My mum, okay, great. No, let's talk about my mum, because an incident happened where there was a spider in my room. I don't like spiders at all. So spider in my room, and I called my mum, who's probably more scared than me, but whatever. And she did deal with it. But do you think, so based on what you're saying, I'm not born with a fear of spiders. So let's say my mum, she's watching this, is to blame for me not liking spiders. This
is all Louise's fault, yes. 100%. Yeah.
But you say that, I remember, okay, and this is a very interesting question for you. I don't like spiders. If you asked me to hold a tarantula right now, I would say, you're mad, goodbye. However, on one of my birthdays, I must have been 6. I vividly remember I had an animal party, I wore a glove, and I held a tarantula in my hand. But what has happened to me from 6 to 23 for me to change my perception on a tarantula?
Something happened. We don't know what it is. Okay, you don't know what it is because we're having a conscious conversation. But if you're in hypnosis, we'd be able to access that folder and then we'd find out whatever it was.
I bet it was you, Mum.
Yeah, it's all your fault, Louise. Are you listening, Louise? Yeah, Louise is listening.
Goes, it's all my fault, it's my mum's too. Yeah, because my grandma has a genuine phobia of spiders.
Okay, well maybe you saw your mum and your grandma in a certain situation.
It's rooted in everything. So any fear comes down to, or any phobia comes down to learned behaviour.
Yeah, pre 6 years old, from just before birth until about the age of 6. The reason it's about 6 is that at that point in our lives, things begin to change within the human brain. I mean, for example, if you were 10 years old and you were sitting in the kitchen and a spider ran across your table and mum screamed, what would you say to her at 10?
Well, it depends if you're scared of them or not.
No, but if nothing has happened to you beforehand, what would you say?
You're like, it's fine.
What's the problem? Yeah. But around about 6, up until 6, nearly everything gets dumped into the subconscious. But once we get to about 6, about 10% gets stored in the logical part of the brain, and then the other 90% gets dumped into the subconscious.
So when I'm thinking of like a memory, so like something like that spider story, am I tapping into my subconscious brain?
No, that's conscious thought, and that is not what is causing the problem.
So that's in my 10% conscious.
That's in your 10%. And we could talk and talk for the next 100 years about that memory, but it is not that memory that's relevant.
So the memories that are causing you issues are the ones you can't consciously access.
Correct. They're the hidden memories. And the more you try to logically work it out, sometimes the more intelligent people are, the more logical, analytical type of people, the worse they suffer from phobias. Because they get the fear that much, and then on top of that, they get well, why can't I sort this out? I can sort anything else out in my life.
Wow. So
they actually get it worse.
It's actually crazy.
Probably not the right word to use, Zoe, but yeah, it's...
No, but like, it's mad to think about. We've got a question. At 6, are you not more fearless than when you grow up and more aware of... Hang on, I don't... At 6, can you see the question?
No.
6, are you not more fearless than when you grow up and are more aware of danger?
Yeah, at 6 we are fearless. Up until the age of 6, we are fearless, totally fearless. If you stood a baby at the top of a cliff, 1,000-foot cliff, looking down, there wouldn't be any fear. But then mum would go, oh my goodness, and snatch the child. So yeah, we're born without... There are only 2 fears that we are hardwired with. One is a fear of loud noises. If you take a newborn baby and you were to clap very loudly by their ear, they would tend to shy away from the source of the sound. Secondly, if you were to hold a newborn baby and just not drop them, but just let them drop maybe a foot, they would take a sharp breath in and move their arms out. They're the only 2 fears that we're hardwired. That's not
physical.
Yeah, but they're the only 2 things that we're hardwired with. But we lose that particular fear very, very quickly after birth. So they're the only 2 things. From then on, you've got a clear run. And then gradually, as you're in situations and adults tell you what to be scared of and what not to be scared of, that's when fears begin.
Wow.
But we start off pretty much perfect.
Start with a clean slate.
Almost, yes.
Well, that's like I was telling you, the film Inside Out. You follow a child from birth to, I think she gets to about 10 or 11, and it is a clean slate. And she starts with 2 emotions, which are happy and sad. And then as she gets older, she has fear, disgust, anger, happy and sad. And it's you need to watch it. It's amazing.
I'll watch it. Thank you. Yeah. I wrote it down. Thank you for telling me about it.
Okay, more questions. Okay, this links into what you just said. Why are there some memories we can... Okay, let me rephrase this back to what you said. Talking of the subconscious mind, Why under hypnosis can you access it? What is happening where you can access it?
Okay. When you go into a state of hypnosis, and all hypnosis is, it's just a very relaxed state. When you go into hypnosis, what it does is it turns your conscious logical mind off temporarily and switches this on. It then allows you to access the memories within this part of the brain. I'll give you an example. If I were to say to you consciously now, what's on your mind, you might say, how long have we been going for? How much longer have we got? But if you're in hypnosis and I asked you what's on your mind, your subconscious would say what's really on your mind. So that's the difference between conscious and subconscious thought.
I mean, just so everyone knows who's joined, I've had hypnotherapy with you. So when I ask these questions, I feel like I kind of do know the answer. So it is weird, though, to think that everything that you're saying, I can then relate to my own experience.
Yeah, because you've experienced it.
Because it is crazy that, like, when you're under hypnosis, I remember you saying to me, actually, you said to me, okay, in this scenario or in this session, you're not going to see things, you're going to feel. And I remember it was everything, I couldn't see anything, but you said to me, where are you feeling this? It was my stomach. I remember grabbing my stomach. And so what's that? Like, what are those deeper things that I can't access? Like, what's happening in that situation?
What's happening is that there's a physical sensation that is attached to an emotional situation. And I use that when we're going back to very, very early memories. There was a question up there just now, Zoe. What was that about? Can babies hear noises outside? Have you got the questions there?
Yeah.
What was that question?
Start with a clean slate. You say almost, David, is that almost common because babies in the womb can hear and pick up on what's going on outside of mom's tummy, shouting, arguing sounds and anxiety?
That's correct. A baby can sense loud noises. They can feel physical movement. They can feel muscle tension in a mother. Mm-hmm. They haven't got a clue what's going on. But then they begin to associate loud noises with muscle tension, with perhaps picking up on a mother's emotion. So does that answer that question?
Mm-hmm. And we've got another question. Does putting someone into hypnosis always work? Is it possible to not be able to enter hypnosis?
About 25% of people like to be in control at all times. Mm-hmm. And they would be very, very difficult to hypnotize. So for that reason, I've never, ever hypnotized anyone, including you. What I do on the first session, if you remember, I teach all of my clients to hypnotize themselves. So you take yourself into a nice, relaxed state. You're totally in control the whole time. And if at any time you want to come out, you can. So the answer to the question is there is a percentage of people that cannot be put into hypnosis by a therapist, which is why I never ever do that. I always put all of my clients in charge of the process themselves, so they're in control.
Well, I remember coming to you, I always talk about this story. My mum tricked me. She told me, because I've always been an anxious child, and she told me I was going to see a friend, but really she took me to see you. But I remember, because you couldn't hypnotize me back then because I was too young, but you said to me, you'll be back when you're 18, and I was, which is really weird. Anyway, I remember though, you taught me tricks that genuinely helped me so much, and to this day I remember the dial and the breathing and my fingers. But so would you say, like, for those that don't feel like they can let go enough, could you do that with them, like techniques and strategies? There has to be trust between the client and the therapist. Mm-hmm. And that's my role, is to, through talking to people and explain exactly what's going to happen to them. That's how they feel much more relaxed. So it's very rare that I have a problem with anyone not being able to take themselves into hypnosis. Extremely rare. Someone said, I'm a control freak. I can never be hypnotized after so many tries for different things. Yeah, well, I wouldn't even attempt to hypnotize. Okay. If whoever that person is, can I just ask you, are you a perfectionist? Do you have a fear of failure? And do you always like to be in control? We'll wait for the answer. Okay. So if someone comes to you and says, I'm a perfectionist, fear of control, or not fear of not being in control, what do you then say? I'm really sorry, I can't do it on you then.
No, I just talk and I explain the process to them, and I explain that they are going to be completely in control. And then we do a series of simple exercises, such as close your eyes and think about a holiday that you went on, and for 5 minutes they're thinking about the holiday, and then I say, well, actually, you've just been hypnotized. You just did it yourself.
Wow, it's trust. She
Yeah.
said yes, 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 yes.
Again, and Sash, I knew the answer to those questions. Yeah. You're a perfectionist. You have a fear of failure. You like to be in control all the time, and you have a fear of embarrassment, probably. Okay. Do we have any more questions coming in?
Me.
You? Okay.
Okay. So you've kind of touched on this, but I think this is really interesting. How do our childhood experiences impact our adulthood?
Because going back to that clean slate. Okay, we know very little. When we're born, we know very little. And as parents, we do the best we can to teach our children what is good and what is bad. You know, when my little granddaughter Cece comes round, there's a radiator in the kitchen and it gets hot. So one of the first times that she came around when she could walk, I said to her, this is hot. I said, put your hand near it, but don't touch it. I said, if you touch it, it's hot. So she put her hand near it and then she moved her hand away. Fine, that's it. She doesn't touch it anymore. So that's a very simple example of learned behavior in a positive way.
Right.
Conversely, if it's, oh my goodness, don't go near that radiator, then suddenly there's a fear, I mustn't go near radiators or something like that. So it's very important that when bringing up children, that it's, even if it's something that they're doing wrong, that you turn it into a positive experience so they remember it, what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, wow. It's good to know also, because obviously, you know, I work with young children, but I genuinely think it, and proven by everything that you're saying, that it's laying the foundations. Because some children come in and they probably see us more than they see their own parents.
I'm now going to say something to you, Zoe, I've never said to you before.
Okay.
You, in your profession, working in a nursery, you have the most responsible job on the planet.
I agree.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Imagine that you have 20 young children in your charge and there's a sudden clap of thunder. What do those 20 pairs of eyes suddenly do?
They're fascinated.
They look to you.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Oh, yeah.
If there's a loud bang, a loud crash of thunder, they look to you. What must you do within a millisecond?
React positively.
Yeah. Oh.
What is it? You do. Everything's learning for them. So that
exactly. If you look out of the window, though, and say, "Oh my goodness," then you've got a problem.
It's true. It's definitely sometimes challenging when you have 25 screaming kids that don't listen to you. But generally, yeah, everything's a learning experience, and that's what is really exciting. Yeah. No, I agree. It is such an important job, for sure.
It is. It is.
So, what is regression hypnotherapy?
Regression hypnotherapy is when someone's in a very relaxed hypnotic state. They can actually go back in time and remember things from this part of the subconscious brain. So regression literally means going back, regressing back to early memories. And when I say going back to early memories, you really do go back to those memories. You physically feel what 3-year-old Zoe felt as you remember the things that we did. You don't just remember the incident, you feel whatever little Zoe felt, but then you put the correct interpretation on that particular memory. That then allows you, when you come out of hypnosis, to bring with you the correct perception of that particular memory, not the 3-year-old's interpretation of it.
Yes. And that's what I think is so interesting, and I think is definitely like a misconception about hypnotherapy. I think people think, you know, you're waving a crystal by someone's head, but it is exactly what you're saying. Like, you feel how you felt, and things that, like, I remember thinking, like, I remember I saying to you, like, I don't know if this is real, like, and you were like, just go with it, what you're feeling. And it's weird. And then what I love is you always send your adult self down, almost like would you say it's like rewriting the memory?
It's like reprogramming. You know, so when the grown-up Zoe goes down to 3-year-old Zoe and talks to her and works it out logically what's going on, that's all part of the process.
I love it. Do you ever feel like, obviously you've got someone's brain in the palm of your hand, are you ever like, oh my god, what if I mess them up, or what if do you ever think that, or are you just too good?
No, I'm continually learning. You know, I'm very proud to say that I don't know everything. The day I think I know everything is the day I'm going to stop. But I had something on this Monday, that just for a split second took me by surprise, but only for a split second. This lady was in hypnosis. She came to see me. She was in a relationship and she was terrified of losing her boyfriend. And she was doing everything she could to keep hold of her boyfriend. So while she was in hypnosis, she said to me, I don't know where I am, but it's dark. It's totally dark. And I feel that there is something next to me. And now whatever it is has now gone. And now there appears to be a void next to me. And I don't like that feeling. Whatever it was, it has left me. And now there's a void. So she came out of hypnosis and she said, I haven't got a clue what that was, but it's intrigued me. So I said, well, maybe speak to your mum. So after the session, she spoke to her mum. And her mum said, this is really freaky. She said, why? She said, very, very early on in my pregnancy with you, it was thought that you had a twin. She said, I know, Mum. I felt them next to me. I felt them go. The mum said, now, I've never told you this. She said, you don't know this because we've never discussed it, because I never thought anything of it.
That's made me emotional.
So for a split second, it was so freaky. And this is why she has a fear of abandonment in the present day. So she tries to avoid conflict. She tries to avoid any argument with her boyfriend. She's terrified that her boyfriend will leave her. And it all goes back to that. Something that she didn't even know had happened.
I think that's the most amazing thing I've ever, like, I don't even have any words. I don't really know what to say to you.
Well, for a split second, I was taken aback.
Oh my God.
So just think back to that line, 12 weeks after conception. This is when memory begins in a certain form, but it is a very crude form.
Someone said, I saw David for treatment for emetophobia. Although I'm not cured, it was life-changing. Oh, those are the words I use about you.
Okay.
You changed my life. I don't say that lightly, like you honestly did. We're going to talk about emetophobia, I think we said next week.
Next week, yeah.
That is a big topic. Okay, Chloe said, how do I stop having a fear of sick? So we're going to cover that next week.
We'll cover that next week, Chloe.
Yeah. The point of this one is kind of to lay the foundation. So for our future lives, if we refer back to something, you kind of already have an idea what we're talking about. But what you've just said, that's actually amazing.
Yeah, as I said, it took me back just for a couple of seconds.
Wow. That's incredible. So what can hypnotherapy treat?
A long list of things. It can treat fears, anxieties, stress, worries, insomnia, fear of flying, emotional overeating, relationship issues. That's a very common one for me to have to address. And perhaps that'll be one for future weeks, where people say, I'm in a relationship that I shouldn't really be in, but I have a fear of being on my own, so I'm just staying in this relationship. And sometimes the pattern repeats themselves, where they keep going into relationships like that. IBS, all sorts of anxieties, fear of failure, fear of success. That's an interesting one. I've treated people with a fear of success and a fear of failure in the same time. there was a certain actress who I treated many years ago who had this. She liked every year to be nominated as like in the top 6 actresses, but she never ever wanted to win the Best Actress of the Year award. So one year she did win, and she phoned me the next day, and she was in a terrible state. She said, the public now, next year, are going to expect me to win.
So it comes with expectations.
Yeah, it's raised the bar too high. When she was just in that 6, it was okay.
Safe.
Yeah, it was safe, yeah. And her talents were being recognized, and she was pretty cool with that.
Yeah.
But once she'd won, then the pressure was really on her.
I've never even heard of that before. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So some people have a fear of success and a fear of failure at the same time.
Someone actually asked me to ask you, what's the weirdest thing you've had to hypnotize someone for?
The weirdest thing? Oh, I do lots of weird things. I had a woman that had a fear of lots of holes being drilled together, like on a piece of cheese. She couldn't buy a piece of cheese that had holes in it, but the holes were too close together. How about a pilot with a fear of flying? I've had 3 of those. Pilots with a fear of flying. That was a weird one.
How's that fun? That's like me working with children having a fear of children.
Yeah, but it was control issues. Because they were fine when they were flying the plane, but what they didn't want was someone else flying the plane. And in every one of those cases...
so they were fine flying it themselves.
Oh, they were fine flying.
But they weren't okay being...
And they all 3 were men, and I asked all 3 men the same questions. Would you ever let your wife drive your car? No way, never. So all 3, because it was a control issue.
That is so interesting. So actually, on that topic of men, someone asked, let me see how they phrased it. What differences do you find speaking to men and to women?
That's an interesting question.
It is.
Okay. It is an interesting question because men are scared than women. So what we have to do is we have to convince the men that it's going to be okay. Yeah. So it takes a little bit more time, a little bit more patience. Mm-hmm. Whereas women are very, very open to this kind of therapy. Plus the fact we then get back to men are the knights in shining armor, and do they have mental health? No, of course not. Yeah. But as we know, times are changing now, and men are much more able to seek help.
Well, that was what my live with Sammy was about. The first half was about the fact that there's this like view that men are meant to be the strong ones and shouldn't be vulnerable and need to be the one in charge. They're saying the man of the house, like they have to be the strong one, and the woman's like the damsel in distress, and they have, like you said, the knight in shining armor. So do you think, with that in mind, that there are a lot of men that are actually just suffering in silence because of this idea that obviously needs to be changed? Definitely,
but it is changing. Because a lot of public figures, you think about Prince William, Prince Harry, footballers. Now that some major male role figures are coming out and saying they have mental health issues, it is helping. But a lot of this is cultural. There are certain cultures in the world where the firstborn son or has to be the dominant male, and he has to look after the family. There's many cultures where, this still goes on, where men are the protectors. But that puts an extra pressure on them. Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to a man that feels this way and feels like, because I feel like, and this is in women as well that I find, and that a lot of people, men and women, view therapy or getting help as a weakness, which obviously it's not. I think it's the strongest thing that you can do. But what would you say to someone, man or woman, that is too afraid to get help?
I think what they have to do is they have to talk to people. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes it's a fear. Sometimes it's a fear of what's going to happen during the therapy. Sometimes it's a fear of finding out stuff they don't want to find out. Sometimes it's even a fear of getting better. There are some people, and I've just noticed there's somebody who's listening, and she knows who she is, but I can't mention her name, has a fear of getting better. There are some people, and I know it sounds silly, but they actually like their particular fear or their particular phobia because it's known to them. It's safe. And the very thought of getting better causes them to become fearful.
Wow. What do you do in that instance?
I just keep shouting at them and tell them, okay, that they are doing great. Yeah, you're laughing now. I can see the person is laughing now. Okay. What happens is you just have to encourage them and identify the areas where they're getting better and get them to understand that they are getting better and they needn't be scared about it.
I guess getting better is actually a positive thing. But then that also links to control, would you not say?
Yeah, I had an email from a lady who I see via Zoom in Paris a little while ago. And she had emetophobia and I helped her. And she sent me an email the other day saying, "You've taken away my only friend. And I now have a void in my life." That's spooky, isn't it? So her whole life was based around this particular phobia. Her rituals, her routines.
Mm-hmm.
So now that's gone. So now she's got a void in her life.
But that should be viewed as a positive. Like, for me, emetophobia was honestly the only thing I used to think about 24/7. And the way I view it, you freed me from it.
Yeah.
But the words I use is like the work you and I did together, because I think hypnotherapy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a team thing, because I think you have to be open to it. Like, as the girl that said before, you know, she's a control freak and she's like, doesn't, whatever the words you used, but I think you have to be open to the help and to the amazing things that you're giving the subconscious mind.
You have to want to get better.
Yeah.
That there has to be a desire to get better.
No, because it's a team thing. I think any therapy is, because someone could, like, not normal therapy, but original therapy, like just talking or CBT, you know, someone can say anything to you, but if you're not willing to help yourself, they can say anything till they're blue in the face, but until you use it yourself. But I think with hypnotherapy, it's like letting someone in. It's like accepting it.
Sure, but at this particular point in the conversation, I think it's important to say that I do not want to change people. When people come to see me, I think it is ethically, morally wrong to try to change somebody. I mean, can you imagine that you were a very shy person, which obviously, yes, I know you were, but you're not now. Okay. Imagine that you're a really shy person, and I did the traditional hypnotherapist, you are a confident person with a swinging watch, and you walked into the nursery on Monday morning, "Hey everybody, Zoe's here." They'd have thought, "Wow, what's happened to her?" So I don't fundamentally want to change anybody. All that I want to do is help them take away just that little bit of fear and then allow them to be the person that they want to be.
Yeah.
But not the person I think they should be, because I don't think I have a right to determine what a person should be.
But that's why I think it's like it's a team thing, because you have to work with each other, I guess. But the next question I think is interesting for me to answer, I realise. But what does hypnosis feel like? So I feel like, actually, because you've obviously, you said in your training you were put under hypnosis. So actually, let's compare notes. What does it feel like?
Okay, what it feels like. You sit in a comfortable chair and you close your eyes and you relax. But you then become very, very aware of your surroundings. 2,000% more aware of what's going on around you. So I know it sounds a bit of a contradiction. How can you be totally relaxed and wide awake? It's what's known as an HSA, a heightened state of awareness. And when you're in this heightened state of awareness and you deprive your brain one of its inputs, in this case, you should close your eyes, your subconscious isn't very happy. It wants to keep you safe. So it does something very significant to your hearing. A bit like a blind man about to cross the road. What happens to a blind man's hearing, Zoe, just before he crosses the road?
Does their hearing go heightened?
10 times more sensitive. And so the same thing happens to you when you're in hypnosis. You hear everything. You hear the slightest noise, a car going past.
I do. I actually remember that. I remember that. You hear everything.
Yeah. But that's because your subconscious is on red alert, okay? It's just looking out for everything to keep you safe. So what does hypnosis feel like? Nothing really, totally relaxed, but wide awake and very sensitive to sounds, things that are going on around you.
It is weird because like I remember feeling like you're asleep but you're not asleep. It's like because I can see. In some cases you can see but you can't see. I don't know if that makes sense.
It's the last 10 seconds before you go to sleep every night. You are in a state of hypnosis every single night of your life.
That's mad. It's a really nice feeling though.
Oh, it's very pleasant. It's lovely.
Like when you wake up, like it's whoa, what's just happened? Yeah. It is a nice feeling for anyone that hasn't had it and is afraid. It is enjoyable and it's nice. We've got questions. If something traumatic happened to me when I was late teens, is this something easier to get over as to something when I was a baby? Wow.
Okay. Well, whatever happened when you were a teen and it was traumatic, if you come to see me, unlike any other therapist, I don't particularly want to talk about that incident.
Yes.
Okay. I'm only interested in what happened to you before you were 6 years old that caused you to react as traumatically as you did in that particular situation. I'll give you an example. A lady came to see me many years ago and she had been abused by her uncle when she was 13. And she'd been to see many, many therapists. And all they wanted to do was talk and talk and talk about this incident when she was 13. And I said to her, I'm not particularly interested in that. But something happened to you beforehand that caused that particular incident to be even more traumatic. So while she was in hypnosis, she remembered a scene when she was about 2 years old. She was in a paddling pool in the garden. And she said, it was a hot sunny day. I haven't got any clothes on. And the man next door has got very, very strange eyes. And he's just staring at me over the fence. And I don't like the feeling. And I'm feeling very unsafe because my mum isn't here. She's gone into the house for a second. And I'm all on my own. And that man with those piercing eyes is looking at me. That was what created the folder in her subconscious. When the incident happened many years later, it actually exacerbated the trauma. Wow. And it made her even more fearful of that particular incident.
That's wow.
So whereas before she'd been to therapy and had done talking therapy at a conscious level about the incident, this root cause, this thing was still there. It hadn't been settled and it was still ticking away beneath the surface.
Wow. Okay, so what would you say to the skeptics of hypnotherapy or those that say it would just never work on them?
They're my favorite clients.
Really?
I love being there. There's a certain lady who I do feature on my website who was editor of one of the most influential fashion magazines in the world. And she had a fear of flying. And she walked into my clinic and she sat in the chair and she folded her arms. She said, I don't believe in this. Can you just do it quickly because I've got to go to a meeting? And I thought, this is tricky because this particular lady is very, very influential. And I can't mess this up. So we did it. And she wrote a very nice article in the Daily Telegraph. Something along the lines of, well, I don't know what you did, but it worked. Or something similar to that. But no, I love dealing with people who are skeptical. I really do.
So back to what someone who commented when she's saying like it never works on her because she's a perfectionist and everything. That's a bit of like skepticism.
No, it didn't work for her because someone tried to hypnotize her
when she wasn't.
And it won't work. It would never work if someone tried to hypnotize her.
Okay.
I turn it completely on its head, and as I said, I teach people to hypnotize themselves. Mm-hmm. And people who are perfectionists, who like things done in a certain way and like to be in control, they take control away from me, which is what the whole idea of my therapy is. They take control away from me, and then they run the session.
Wow. Yeah, because I guess you, as the therapist, are being led by the client with what they're seeing, and you.
Sure. There's something called false memory syndrome. I don't know if you've heard about it, where in the hands of an inexperienced therapist, the therapist will make suggestions about where someone needs to go to in their subconscious, which I believe it's totally wrong, because when someone's sitting in front of me, I haven't got a clue where to take them. So I don't take them anywhere. They take themselves.
Yes.
So I don't lead. I allow them to take control. And as you say, they lead us to whatever is the relevant point in their early lives.
Do you know what? That's actually so interesting. I've never actually thought of that until now. Because if I think back, you are absolutely right. I was.
Oh, thank you, Zoe. Thank you.
Welcome. I was leading it. And do you know what? To the control freaks out there, that just puts into perspective, you are in control.
You are in control. And I say to people, anytime you want to stop the therapy, open your eyes.
It's true. Wow.
Has that just hit you like a light bulb moment?
Yeah, it really has, because I feel like, I don't know, it's I don't know, it's just, I think it's an most amazing therapy. I would honestly not just recommend it, but I recommend you so highly, as you know. We have another question. Is subconscious hypnosis a permanent fix, or is it something that needs to be done continually to keep the phobia or issue away?
Okay, there are two types of hypnosis. Okay, the first type is called suggestion hypnosis, which is something when I first trained 18 years ago, I started doing it for a few months, but I realized it wasn't a permanent fix. And that's where, if you're in a state of hypnosis, the therapist makes positive suggestions. You are not frightened of this, and you're confident. That's a very short-term fix. Okay. But it's a therapy I stopped doing very quickly in favor of what we've already discussed, which is regression hypnosis. Regression hypnosis goes to the root cause and fixes the root cause. If the root cause is fixed correctly, that then prevents a reoccurrence. However, there are certain things that happen to us in our lives that can cause an issue to come back temporarily. One is the death of somebody very close to you. Secondly, divorce. And thirdly, if you unfortunately lose your job. These are very traumatic, three traumatic things that can happen to us. And those particular things can cause, unfortunately, a fear or a phobia to come back temporarily. But sometimes just one session is needed to get a person back on track. Sometimes it fixes themselves.
Wow, that's really interesting. One thing I wanted to ask you, actually, I always get interested in this by therapists, but how do you not take on someone else's things?
It's what you're trained to do. The only time I have a problem is if something really terrible happens to a young child. It's something, I love kids, absolutely love kids. And it's something that might play on my mind, for a few minutes afterwards. But then I have to regroup and then prepare myself for my next, for my next client.
It's a really heavy job.
It is. And I've heard some terrible stuff that there was a French lady who came to see me maybe 15 years ago, and she was brought up as a dog by her mother. Her mother used to breed dogs, and the mother used to feed her cold raw mincemeat in a metal dish outside on the doorstep. And she remembered while she was in hypnosis being underneath her mum's arm, and the mum had a black sack over her other shoulder, and the mum walked into the sea near where they lived in France. The mum walked out into the sea, and she threw the bag, which happened to have a load of puppies in that the mum didn't want anymore, and she threw her into the water, and then she turned around and walked back to the shore. And there just happened to be a guy there that ran into the sea and saved her. Now I did not know what this lady's face was like for the first 3 sessions. Her self-confidence was so bad, she just stared at the floor. She couldn't even look me in the eye for the first 3 sessions. And that lady now has produced a piece of furniture that is on sale in every major store worldwide, and she's made a lot of money. And I said to her, "You've done really well for yourself." She said, "I'm still driving my old car and I'm still living in my old flat. And all the money that she earns goes into a trust for the Great Ormond Street Hospital."
Wow.
She doesn't take any money.
Amazing.
So she just wants to give back.
That is a story. Wow.
Do we have any more questions?
We do. So someone actually asked you, do you have any tips for retraining your brain from habits or fears that you've picked up from childhood experiences?
It's very difficult to do it at a conscious level. Really, really difficult. It's not something, you know, that sometimes people have, that they go through scripts where they repeat things. I'm not scared, I'm not scared, I'm confident. And that works short term. But with the root cause, whatever it is still ticking away, then it's very, very difficult to have a permanent fix.
Wow. So go have hypnotherapy.
Well, okay, it's a person's choice. It's a way of fixing it.
Someone actually asked, can you really get over something so traumatic?
Yes. I've had people who've had, as I said, the most traumatic things happen to them. Horrific abuse. And they've managed to get over it. Now, you know, we can't change history.
Yeah.
We can't make them forget whatever happened to them. But by accessing their subconscious, what we can do is we can allow them to move on, to understand what happened, and then prevent them from reliving that trauma day after day after day. But I have dealt with the most horrendous trauma.
David, didn't you treat a lady who was what's that?
Agoraphobic and scared of flying? She jumped out of a plane on a skydive. Yes, she did.
Wow.
That woman she couldn't get out of her house. She lived down on the south coast. She could not get out of her house for months and months. And I finally convinced her that she should come and see me. And then 3 months later, she sends me a photo. Look at me, I'm jumping out of a plane.
I mean, that's amazing. And you could even, I could even relate to that, because obviously I came to you with and we'll touch on that next week, intense emetophobia. But I told David that about 2 or 3 months ago, I had a child walking towards me throwing up, and I survived, and I didn't even panic. I mean, I was obviously shocked. If that were me pre-David, I would have been on the floor having a panic attack. So it is, I mean, anyone watching that is suffering or anything, if these stories give you hope, I hope they do, because it is an amazing form of therapy. And David is, honestly, he's, as you can tell, he's amazing. And you never feel like, I've had a lot of other therapy where I felt under pressure, or I felt I had to do things that I didn't want to do, I guess, and made me feel uncomfortable. But you never, ever made me feel like that. And I remember the first session coming to you and feeling like someone finally understands me. That's what I felt from you. Understood. Thank you. And that is what is amazing about you. You understand. And to be understood in when you're living with this thing that you don't even understand yourself, and someone sits in front of you and tells you, because I don't even think I knew it was called emetophobia. But we'll save that for next week. We'll save that for next week. Yeah. I have 2 more questions for you, and then we'll leave you. One, someone asked, and the other one I asked. I'm going to ask you. Someone asked, can we truly control our mind?
If we talk about control, no. If I say to you now, please, Zoe, please don't think about pink elephants.
I'm thinking of pink elephants now.
You think, yes. So you can't control your mind.
Yeah.
You think you can say, I'm not going to think about, but that definitely is not my therapy.
Yeah.
It really, because it's only short term. So it's not a question of control. It's understanding what happened, whatever it was that happened to you when you were young, truly understanding it. And then as you come back out of hypnosis, truly understanding it, it then doesn't trouble you anymore. You don't need to control it because it doesn't need controlling anymore.
Yeah. Wow. My question is, I ask this to everyone, so I'm going to ask this to you. What do you define as beautiful?
What do I define as beautiful? Beauty comes from within.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with what someone physically looks like. It's an emotion. It's something you feel.
For sure. Do you know what's so interesting? Everyone says different things. I mean, everyone so far has said internal, but everyone said different things. And it's my thing now that I ask all my guests, because it's interesting to hear everyone's answers. Wow. Oh, someone actually said sorry, I did promise you that was my last question, but someone said, how do you get from A to B in that instance? So like the woman that went from fear of,
with that particular lady, it took quite a few sessions, and it was a process, and it wasn't a smooth process. It wasn't a smooth week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. It was a series of bumps. So how do we get from
You say that. You always say healing is blips.
It has to be like that. Blips. It has to be like that.
Yeah.
You know, when you first started working in the nursery, did you ever make any mistakes?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, fine. But did you learn from them? And you didn't. Fine. So, but I'm a realist.
Yeah.
You know, I don't say to people everything's going to be great and every day is going to be a positive day, because that isn't the case. But by learning to understand that you are going to have some days where you don't feel fantastic, and then climb out and feel better the next day, that's being real. So that's why I insist that people have a series of blips as they go through the therapy.
Amazing. Well, this has been incredible, like so informative and so interesting. Just to remind everyone, David will be back every Sunday about a different theme. So if you want to know anything, just message either of us and we can cover it. And if anyone is suffering, please reach out to David. I promise you are in safe hands. He is honestly amazing, and don't be afraid. I hope this has given everyone a kind of insight into hypnotherapy and into David, because he's incredible. And thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to explain to people.
It's been so interesting, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, so if people say what they want us to do, you know, we can do, so next week we're doing emetophobia, we can do insomnia, we can do relationships, weight loss, fears, anything like that.
I've already shotgun next week as emetophobia, guys.
Okay.
I apologise. That I think, but then after that, anyone, it's a free-for-all. Obviously, we want to give you what you want to know. So, yeah, message either of us with anything that you want to know. You've had a lot of saying, well done, Zoe. He really is amazing. I can't wait for next week. David is amazing. Excellent. Really enjoyed. Very interesting. Can't wait for next week. Great. It's very positive. Okay. Well, thank you.
My pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you for doing the work that you do and helping so many people.
And thank you for inviting me on.
Of course. We'll
see you next week. See you next week. Bye.
Love. Bye.
Bye.